You're listening to Jeremy Vaeni's Paratopia vlog, right here on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paratopia. Welcome back to Jeremy's vlog. Today I'm here with a very special guest, friend, mentor, co-host, fro-host? I don't know if I can make that all in word. Jeff Ritzmann of Myth and Lore, and now Physicality. Not unlike the UFOs themselves.
Right, that's correct.
We're here to talk about...
Well, these would be a lot better with tobacco.
Well, it would make more sense.
Right. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't feel nearly as special with this. In any event, so we're here to talk about, or maybe do damage control on, some of the more idiotic fallout of the Emma Woods article that I wrote for UFO Magazine, and of course that we have been pounding into the heads of people through Paratopia, the Emma Woods saga. And for the most part, so far, both privately and publicly, I think some of the big wigs in ufology have, given us, or given me, or given the magazine positive feedback. But then there are idiots. And we just can't let it go.
Right.
So, let's, should we start with numero uno idiot, Gene Steinberg?
Well, yeah, doesn't he keep repeating the same thing?
Over and over again, like an obsessive, yes.
Yeah.
Like a crazy, crazy obsessive person. Now, Gene, as most of you will remember, we made up with on the forum, we made up with on the show, but then in Tim Banal's forum, if you go into banalofamerica.com and you go to other voices, you'll see a really long-ass thread where we hand Gene Steinberg his ass over and over and over again regarding the Emma Woods case, and that sort of led to yet another rift. But somebody had pointed out that on his forum now, he is just flat out saying Emma Woods basically is crazy, and she's obsessive, and she just keeps repeating the same thing over and over again. And so we can't trust her testimony, and we, of course, the thing that he keeps repeating over and over again is that she could be doctoring, well, she is doctoring the tapes. We know that much, he says.
Right.
Because she at least admits that she's taking out names and places that would reveal the identities of people who wish to remain anonymous.
Right.
But we don't know how far her editing skills may take her, and she could in fact be, I guess, piecing together bits of David Jacobs' audio out of whole cloth and creating, entire words like Chastity Belt?
Right. Yes. Yes.
So who's the crazy one? Now, I just want to, I'll let Jeff go in 1 second on this. I just want to say, because a lot of people then chime in and say, yes, she is obsessive, yes, Gene, of course all men.
Yeah.
But does anyone say that about the person whose child was abducted, and then we end up having Amber Alerts as a result of obsessive parents, or anything that affects you that's a tragedy? You generally tend to become obsessive over and take an interest in and try to get the word out to the world. And it seems that going hand in hand now with this notion of her being obsessive is that what does she want from him? She's already ruined his career. But no, she hasn't.
No.
His career goes on. He's still being interviewed like nothing has happened. I mean, maybe after the article, things will change or something. I don't know. But no, she's not ruined his career. No, she's not being too obsessive. And if you were in the same situation, you'd be obsessive too. So,
Well,
Jeff,
I mean,
that's
exactly it. I mean, you think about anyone who feels that they've been wronged or feels that they've got adequate evidence for being wronged, for being taken advantage of, for whatever reason. You've been wronged, and you've got mounds and reams of data that she's provided freely on the internet, over and over, to us, not privately, on her website, to the world. And then for somebody to ignore that, or to then turn around and place the blame, that's like, well, you wore that skirt, so,
right.
I mean, that is just, I can't even get my head around that anymore. I mean, but that whole notion of crying out, wanting people to pay attention to what you have to say, is not only to garner the attention that's needed to expose the situation, but to ensure it doesn't happen to anybody else. I mean, that's the whole point. And so how obsessive can you be? Do you even call it obsessive? You're driven to let people know, this happened to me, it's not right, here's my evidence to suggest that this is not right. I mean, it's so cut and dry to me. I don't even understand why people say that she's so obsessive, other than there's reams of things that she has to present. But I think at this point, she's pretty much made her case for everything that she's had to say.
So what do you think, I mean, we're singling out Steinberg here. What do you think Steinberg is doing this for? Do you think he's a complete idiot? Because he's not, right?
No, Gene's not an idiot.
So why doesn't he just say the normal thing, which is, oh, wow, yeah, that's pretty terrible. Maybe we need to look into this.
Well, I mean, for the very simple reason that, I don't think it's been a year ago, or maybe it has been a year, but him and the other host had on David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins, treated them like royalty, essentially, in the ufological circle. Softball Jacobs on the whole Woods thing, because apparently Jacobs said, that's it, I won't even be involved if certain people are involved in this interview. So they softballed him about the whole thing. It take 5 minutes to get through the whole discussion of that. And then after that, it was right on to regressive hypnotherapy, all the consistencies, all of that nonsense. And so in the end, they were basically treated as royalty. To boot, later on, they have an experiencer on there who clearly doesn't want regression hypnotherapy done on him. And they
explains the dangers of therapy.
He's explaining to them.
And not just explaining the dangers, but that his father is a professional therapist, I believe psychologist and hypnotist, and he had asked his dad, will you do regression on me so I can remember some of these missing time things? And he said, no way, because you don't use it for that.
Exactly.
And they were trying to talk him out of that, or just sort of saying, well, are you sure? I mean, Gene went to the extent of saying, well, could you go see somebody outside of your father, maybe outside of your father, to get another opinion in the ufological circles, and not even to see about hypnotherapy, but just other forms of therapy. And the guy says, well, like who? I have done that, but like who are you referring to? And he says, well, Hopkins and Jacobs.
Right.
And he says, well, yeah, I did see them, and of course they wanted to do hypnotherapy on me.
But
I mean, it's just it's like cartoonishly nonsensical.
Well, and that then feeds into the reason why that there is such opposition to Emma, is because it's not so much about the issue. It's not so much about Emma's mistreatment or her perceived mistreatment or all of the data that she's presented. It's not about any of that. It's about not taking responsibility for, essentially, in my opinion, being bamboozled. And not saying, we screwed up, now we have this data, now we got to put this aside. Okay, we no longer support this sphere of research in conjunction with this manner. It can't be done that way. We can't support that. Instead of doing that, it's sticking with the notion of hypnotherapy, regression hypnotherapy, the Jacobs, the Hopkins, the Lambs, the whoever. Doing this, it's all good. This is all what it's supposed to be. It's all about not admitting you're wrong is what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to. And that refusal to admit that, unfortunately, I think is one of the main reasons that this stuff is holding on so long. And that other people, read something that Steinberg has written or said, or goes to that board and sees what other people are, of course, backing Gene up on this. And I think that's one of the main reasons. But the other reason is that you couple that with her obsessive nature to get this out, which is an obsessive drive to get this out, because she feels wronged. So couple those two things together, and he seems to have some sort of case to some people. That's before you actually look at Dr. Lillienfeld and what he says. And we're not hanging our hat on Lillienfeld as a whole. There are papers all over the net Go look this stuff up, people. It's not difficult.
Yeah, this is what I don't understand.
I mean,
a simple Google search will reveal what actual therapists think about actual hypnotherapy. It ain't pretty, in most cases.
No. And we can go over it again. I mean, again, we can go over it again. Yeah, you know, open to confabulation, number one. It's a behavior modification tool, which is great for this field of research because we're making up experiencers. That's the point. You know, the notion of leading questions.
It can make you forget things. It cannot make you remember things. It cannot expand your consciousness to remember things, according to this paper from Berkeley that I read, which had several, like a dozen study sources.
Right.
And the conclusion is, it doesn't even retrieve memory. It's not... Now, are there other articles that maybe, counteract that in some way? Maybe. But I haven't seen them, one. And two, it might counteract, some notion of being able to retrieve memory. But I think Dr. Lillienfeld really nailed it when he says that it's no better or worse than getting somebody drunk in terms of getting memory, and so you don't know what else is attached to that memory, and you don't know how warped that memory is.
Well, you can't separate it. You can't qualify any number of points that someone may make, 1 through 5. 2 and 4 may be legitimate memory.
Well, and at this point,
you've got 2 and 4 may be nothing.
At this point, you've got as Carol Rainey, said to me today, you've got this added problem of when people go to a Hopkins or a Jacobs, they go to them with their books underhand.
Oh, absolutely.
Stargazing, because they know who these men are. They know what their work is.
Right.
And they've already got it in their head.
Well,
that's
why else would you seek them out?
Well, right. And these are not trained therapists, so they're not even trained to deal with that. They're not trained to deal with patient-doctor transference.
Right.
They're not trained to deal with psychology of a person.
Right.
Let alone tamper with their minds. So.
Well, when it comes down to somebody seeking out a Hopkins or a Jacobs, again, that's the cultural contamination issue right there. In that a good portion of the public already knows what the scenario of alien abduction is. And so if they have an experience where they cite something and maybe, I don't know, they drink too much coffee on the way home and they lose track of time, I've got missing time. And then we're going to seek out a Hopkins or Jacobs. It's already in there. That memory's already in. And so, of course, when they get regressed, based on a leading question, based on just wanting to please the person, they don't want to feel like a fool. Who would want to go and lay in front of Hopkins or Jacobs?
You go to a Hopkins, a Jacobs, a Barbara Lamb, and and you're there to do something. You're there to retrieve memory, and so you're going to go, well, I did that. I went to, back to college.
I got nothing. You can't get nothing.
Yeah, right. Well, the one time I went to hypnotherapy in college, and I knew what I was doing. I knew that I was trying to come up with things for her, and I said that to her as I was doing it. I was like, these don't feel like real memories to me. This feels like I'm searching to try to please you.
To give you an answer that you're trying to get.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like I'm wasting your time. I mean, there's always that underlying, as I would assume, especially with at least Hopkins and Jacobs, they're obviously busy guys. They're seeing a lot of people. A lot of people are coming to them, the world over, obviously. And so you don't want to feel like you're wasting their time, so of course you're going to come out with something. And any hints that come out as far as a leading question are going to facilitate you being able to crack it out faster.
This concludes Jeremy Vaeni's Paratopia vlog right here on YouTube.